The loss of local party support is devastating for any congressperson, let alone a congressperson who was caught lying about everything from his resume to his identity to his religion to being on a winning college volleyball team. He lied about all of those things. But today, even as the world now knows that he lied about things that no congressman has ever taken the time to lie about before, George Santos remains defiant.
Will you step down?
Guys, I will not. Guys, you got to give us space.
Need a little space here.
This way.
The New York Republicans are calling you a disgrace.
Pardon me.
You will not resign.
Pardon me.
Excuse me, guys. The Congress is trying to get in the elevator. Excuse us.
Now, you would think, given the magnitude of Santos's lies and his complete loss of support at the local level, you would think that leaders of the National Republican Party wouldn't leave the question of whether or not Santos gets to stay in Congress up to Santos himself. You would think that the Speaker of the House would not stand for that. You would be wrong.
Are you going to take any action against him at this point? Are any of these allegations acceptable to you?
What are the charges against him?
Well, I mean,
is there a charge against him? You know, in America today, you're innocent until proven guilty.
Speaker Kevin McCarthy finds himself in a tough spot. He is hanging on to power with a paper-thin majority, a handful of votes for which he traded everything but the Speaker's gavel itself. And George Santos voted for him to be the Speaker of the House 15 times, every single vote. So whether or not McCarthy actually wants Santos to be a member of Congress, he needs Santos to be a member of Congress to maintain his majority. So with Santos not resigning willingly and McCarthy not taking action, what happens now? Well, it turns out McCarthy's innocent until proven guilty comment might actually be the path forward here. While it may not be a crime to lie about where you went to college or whether or not you're Jewish or whether or not you were the star striker on a college volleyball team, it is a crime to lie about your campaign finances. And to put it lightly, politely even, Santos's campaign finances are fishy. The New York Times reports that Santos's campaign paid a housekeeping company called Cleaner 123. It paid that company $11,000. That company then rented a suburban Long Island home that neighbors say it appeared Santos was living in. In Santos's local Long Island election, he somehow managed to charge the campaign for $40,000 of air travel and $30,000 in hotels and Airbnbs for stays in places like Tennessee and Virginia, Texas, Florida, California, and Kansas and Michigan. The list goes on. And again, this is all for a local Long Island congressional campaign. To top it all off, the campaign claimed more than 800 expenses below $200. That's the threshold for needing to keep receipts for a campaign purchase. More than 30 of those expenses were pegged at $199.99, which is a penny below the reporting threshold. As I said, fishy. Fishy enough that yesterday, two other New York congressmen, Dan Goldman and Richie Torres, formally asked the House Ethics Committee to investigate George Santos. Joining me now is one of those congressmen himself, Dan Goldman of New York. Congressman Goldman, first of all, welcome to Congress, and thank you for being with us this evening.
Great to be with you, Alex.
So, I mean, just to get a sense of how much you normally spend on air travel and hotels, I think Nick LaLota, another representative from Long Island, spent $900 on hotel stays, $3,000 on airfare, $900 on taxis. Did you spend anywhere close to $40,000 on airfare and $30,000 on hotels in the course of your campaign?
Nowhere close. These are absurd expenses that no one in a highly competitive local race for Congress would ever spend. And you listed a laundry list of questionable expenses. But what I want to emphasize is I think it may be much more serious than that, because those are campaign expenses. But the question is, how did he get the money into his campaign to spend it? He gave $700,000 of his own money to the campaign. And where did he get that? From an entity that he created during the campaign that all of a sudden got an infusion of millions of dollars that he then paid himself, which he acknowledged he paid himself, and ultimately siphoned to his campaign. there are red flags of campaign finance fraud all around that conduct.
And on that note, we have some new reporting from the Washington Post this evening. Prior to the campaign, Santos was working at an organization called Harbor City Capital, which was later accused of a classic Ponzi scheme. Turns out Santos was working there later than initially reported. He was working there as recently as April of 2021. In May of 2021, he creates this organization of which you speak, the DeVolder organization, which then all of a sudden is flush with cash, including enough to pay him a salary of $750,000 and lend his campaign $700,000. Do you think it is possible that the money that was piped into DeVolder could have had its origin in a classic Ponzi scheme?
I think it's too hard to tell. I don't want to speculate about that, but I do think what there has been some reporting on is that some of the money that went into DeVolder, some of the quote unquote clients that he claimed but did not disclose, importantly, were large Republican donors who may have very well been using the DeVolder organization as a pass-through to get to George Santos's campaign and to allow them to exceed campaign finance limits. Now, a lot of this is speculation, and that's why Congressman Torres and I asked the Ethics Committee in the House to investigate these very finances to see if he violated the Ethics in Government Act. There's a parallel investigation in the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Eastern District of New York that I'm sure is also looking at this conduct as well. But in Congress here, if we are to have a member of Congress walking around who's in stark violation of the ethics laws that apply to all of us, that's unacceptable. It demeans the integrity of the institution, of each one of us here. It eliminates our ability to ask Americans to follow the law if there are members of our own body who cannot do that or won't do that. And so that's why we asked for this investigation yesterday.
Well, do you think it's going to happen? I mean, we saw Kevin McCarthy's position on this is basically until he's charged with something, he's my guy. The House Ethics Committee is bipartisan, but it will have a Republican chair. We don't know who that chair is. Is your expectation that they'll take this matter up, given how egregious at least the evidence appears to be?
Yes, our expectation is that they will. It is a committee that has evenly divided between Republicans and Democrats with nonpartisan staff, and this is exactly what the purpose of the committee is. And I would expect George Santos will cooperate fully. If he says he's done nothing wrong, nothing unethical, then he should have no problems turning over the documents to the committee. Kevin McCarthy is skating on very thin ice on this one, because if your argument is that you're welcome to be a member of the Republican Party until you're convicted of a crime and you can deceive and defraud the voters of your district in order to get into Congress as much as you want, as long as you escape criminal charges, that's a lot of leeway for a party that is already very anti-democratic.
I just got to say, what a start to the 118th Congress. What a start for the New York delegation. It is. Did you ever think your congressional career would begin like this, with an ethics committee referral for someone in your own state delegation?
No, and nor did I think the first thing that I would agree on with other members of the New York delegation on the other side of the aisle is that George Santos should resign. But there are now 4 Republican members of the New York delegation who have done exactly that. And I do agree with that.